I mean, this is like a fascination for everyone because everyone is wondering what is going on over the skies of North America. 3 more objects shot down in the last 3 days. That makes a total of 4. So are there more things floating up there, or are we just being more vigilant now? The Air Force general in charge of NORAD, that is a North American Aerospace Defense Command, says that we have a lot to learn. Watch this.
I would be hesitant to and urge you not to attribute it to any specific country. We don't know. That's why it's so critical to get our hands on these so that we can further assess and analyze what they are.
All right, so we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We want to get as much information as possible. So let's discuss now with retired Major General Scott Clancy of NORAD. He serves as the Director of Operations and was Deputy Commander of the Alaska region. Good morning to you. Thank you so much. We appreciate you joining us here on CNN this morning. I'm sure you're a very busy guy right now. NORAD says that the takedown of the Chinese spy balloon was likely the first time that NORAD has taken what they call kinetic action against an airborne object over the U.S. airspace. There has been a total of 4 objects shot down now. So what is going on? What are your concerns? Please explain to us.
Well, I think you're seeing the confluence of 2 things. The first thing is what General Van Erck, my old commander, referred to as intelligence gaps that existed with our systems of detection across North America. As he said in his briefing after the initial shoot down of the Chinese attributed balloon, that they have since closed those gaps. And it's been referred to as adjusting the filters on those systems. I think there's maybe a little bit more to that, but what it does is it allows these systems to be seen more often. The second thing, and this is just conjecture from my perspective, I think you're also seeing the confluence of distinctive activity by our adversaries to test our systems. And I think it's the confluence of both of those things that we're producing these number of events.
Does that mean you think it's China?
No, I do not. And I think that General Van Erck's prudence with respect to attribution of these last 3 is well-sounded, especially when we think of the tensions that already exist in the relations between China and the United States particularly, but let's just say China and the Western world, over the Straits of Taiwan, over its economic dealings, over its flouting of international laws. Canada has been demarched by them in the past for a number of things. So his prudence in making sure that we can recover the objects before attribution is smart. But what I'm saying is it smells to me, as the guy who was directed to conduct operations to defend North America, I'd be very suspicious and I'd be on high alert to make sure that all of our adversaries are being countered.
Can you just follow up on something you said? You said distinctive, what, to test our system, and why now? Why so?
Well, I think that I think that's what we're trying to get out of the recovery and analysis of the payloads of the devices that have been shot down. It's not just where they were. It's not just the critical infrastructure or defense infrastructure, nuclear fields that they flew over. It's also the type of sensors that they had on board. And then finally, what you're really trying to ascertain is what was the overall intent of doing this with these devices at this time. It looks to me to be a concerted effort, because you have any more than one object, then it looks like a coordinated effort. And it might not be over even the infrastructure that you fly over. You might fly over infrastructure attempting to see inside of our networks or command and control systems the reactions so that you can play out those reactions for the future.
Since you were the former deputy commander here, what actually happens once they detect something like this? You know, they've scrambled the fighter jets to go and investigate, and then when do they make the call to shoot something down? What's the threshold for that look like?
Well, that's a great question. When I was the deputy commander up in the Alaskan region, for 2 years, we would detect with our long-range radar systems or be cued by national intelligence of both Canada and the United States on an upcoming event or an event that's occurring inside of the air defense identification zone. At which point in time in the region, we would make, either my commander or myself would make the decision with respect to launching alert aircraft to be able to respond. Now, those alert aircraft will go, and alongside of AWACS, or airborne early warning systems, aircraft that have very long radars and associated tankers, we would inspect those objects, or what we would call targets of interest. Once an identification is made, and you heard the Canadian Minister of National Defense saying on the device that was shot down in the Yukon that they wanted to establish visual identification, which is why they waited for daylight. Now, once that identification is done, and that's extremely important to be able to delineate exactly what you're dealing with. Is this a civilian aircraft? Is this a military aircraft? What is it? Because up until that point in time, it's only a radar contact. It's at that point in time that NORAD headquarters in Colorado Springs will characterize or describe those elements to the national authorities of Canada and the United States. Now, they'll explain them to both. However, the decision to take action will be with the sovereign authorities of either one of the nations that the object is in. So, for example, it would have been the Canadian Prime Minister that ordered the shoot down for the object in the Yukon. But if the object was in American airspace like Alaska, that would have been the purview of the American authorities.
There's so many questions. How do you exactly tweak the way we detect such things? Like, how do you tweak that, and how do they change it, and why did they change it?
So I think that this has been an ongoing effort to make sure that those of us who are charged with the defense of North America are maximizing the systems that we have right now. I think of a radar screen that is full of little dots and squiggles all over that screen, and a human is trying to interpret all of those radar contacts. This becomes difficult. If your primary threat is from aircraft that travel at hundreds of miles an hour, then you're going to adjust the gain or filter to weed out all of birds, environmentals, and as such, you would weed out also balloons that are low speeds. At which point in time, you're not going to see those targets. Now, the second thing is that the radar systems that we have in NORAD they're very old now, and we've been lax in modernizing the NORAD infrastructure to be able to deal with this. If you apply data management systems, machine learning and AI on the back end of existing radars, then instead of a human trying to interpret those things, machines are able to bring that data out and interpret them for us so that we can be more effective. I think you're seeing both of these things happen.
Fascinating, fascinating. Thank you, retired Major General Scott Clancy. We appreciate it. I mean, it's